Have you ever noticed how two people of the same age can appear to be living in completely different bodies? One moves with ease, carries themselves with natural vitality, and engages fully with life. The other seems diminished, cautious, as if the world has gradually shrunk to match their declining capacity. We tend to accept this as simply the way things are. Some people age better than others, and we assume it comes down to genetics or luck. But what if the difference has less to do with chance and more to do with architecture? What if the body, far from being a random collection of parts slowly wearing down, is actually an exquisitely designed system, one that responds predictably to how it is treated across the decades? Today we are going to explore what separates those who maintain their vitality from those who lose it, and why the choices made in your 50s, 60s, and beyond may matter more than anything that came before. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The architecture of longevity. Understanding the body's design for a long life. A different way of seeing time. There is a particular quality to the light in the early morning, when the world has not yet fully awakened, and the mind is still hovering somewhere between the dreams of the night and the practical demands of the day. In these quiet moments, one might find themselves considering the passage of time in a more personal way, not as an abstract concept, but as something registered in the body, in the face that looks back from the mirror, in the subtle shifts that accumulate across the years like sediments settling at the bottom of a slow-moving river. We tend to think of aging as a process of decline, a gradual surrendering of what we once were. The culture reinforces this interpretation at every turn, offering countless products and procedures designed to create the illusion that time has somehow been paused or reversed. But there exists another way of understanding what it means to grow older, one that has less to do with appearance and more to do with architecture. The body, after all, is not a random collection of parts slowly falling into disrepair. It is an exquisitely designed system, built with redundancies and repair mechanisms, with feedback loops and compensatory strategies, all oriented toward one fundamental goal: continued functioning. What we call aging might be better understood as the gradual expression of the body's design over time. Not a bug, but a feature, or rather, a complex interaction between genetic inheritance and environmental input that plays out across decades. The question worth asking is not how to stop this process, which would be like asking how to stop a river from flowing toward the sea. The question is how to work with the body's inherent design, how to provide what it needs to maintain its architecture as the years accumulate. This exploration will consider the factors that influence how well the body maintains itself over time, not as a collection of isolated tips or anti-aging strategies, but as an integrated understanding of what the human organism requires to function optimally across the full arc of a long life. The perspective offered here draws on observations from populations that have consistently demonstrated remarkable vitality into advanced age, on research into the cellular mechanisms that underlie the aging process, and on the practical wisdom of those who have studied what distinguishes vigorous aging from premature decline. What emerges is not a program to be followed rigidly, but a framework for thinking about the body's needs, a way of understanding that small, consistent choices, repeated across decades, shape the architecture of our later years far more than any single intervention ever could. The foundation. Why bodies age differently. Consider for a moment two individuals of the same chronological age. One moves with ease, carries themselves with upright posture, engages actively with the world around them. The other moves carefully, with the caution that comes from diminished reserves, and finds the world shrinking to match their reduced capacity. Chronologically, they share the same number of birthdays. Biologically, they inhabit different landscapes entirely. This observation, that people of the same age can appear decades apart in their physical presentation, contains within it a profound truth about aging. The number of years since birth provides only the roughest approximation of where someone stands in their life trajectory. What matters far more is the condition of the underlying systems that support daily function. The biological processes that we collectively call aging operate at multiple levels simultaneously. At the cellular level, accumulated damage to DNA and proteins gradually compromises function. The energy-producing structures within cells, the mitochondria, become less efficient with time, producing less fuel while generating more waste products. The immune system, which once patrolled the body with vigilance, becomes less discriminating, sometimes attacking harmless substances while missing genuine threats. At the tissue level, these cellular changes manifest as reduced capacity. Muscles lose fibers and become weaker. Bones lose density and become more fragile. Blood vessels lose elasticity and become stiffer. Joints lose the smooth cartilage that once allowed effortless movement. The nervous system processes information more slowly, and the senses that connect us to the world, vision, hearing, taste, smell, gradually dim. Yet this description, while accurate in its broad strokes, misses something essential: the tremendous variability in how these changes express themselves across different individuals. Some people experience significant decline in one system while maintaining robust function in others. Some show advanced cellular aging while remaining functionally vigorous. The relationship between chronological time and biological condition is far from linear. What accounts for these differences? Research increasingly points toward a constellation of factors that influence the rate at which these age-related changes accumulate. Genetic inheritance plays a role. Certainly, some individuals are born with variants that confer advantages in cellular repair or antioxidant production. But genetics appears to set a range of possibilities rather than a fixed destiny. Within that range, lifestyle factors, what we eat, how we move, how we manage stress, who we surround ourselves with, exert powerful influences on the trajectory of aging. This understanding transforms aging from something that simply happens to us into something we actively participate in shaping. Not through control. The body will change regardless of our efforts, but through the quality of the ongoing conversation between our choices and our biology. The architecture of cellular maintenance. To understand how lifestyle choices influence aging, one must first appreciate the remarkable maintenance systems built into every cell of the body. These systems operate continuously, repairing damage, recycling worn components, and defending against threats. Their effectiveness largely determines how well cells maintain function over time. Consider first the systems that protect against oxidative damage. As cells convert nutrients into energy, they generate reactive molecules that can damage proteins, lipids, and DNA. The body produces an array of antioxidant enzymes: superoxide dismutase, catalase, glutathione peroxidase, that neutralize these reactive molecules before they can cause harm. These enzymes require specific minerals to function. Superoxide dismutase depends on copper, zinc, or manganese depending on its location in the cell. Catalase incorporates iron. Glutathione peroxidase requires selenium. Without adequate mineral intake, these protective systems operate at reduced capacity. The dietary sources of these minerals are not mysterious. Copper appears abundantly in shellfish, organ meats, nuts, and seeds. Zinc concentrates in oysters, red meat, and pumpkin seeds. Selenium can be obtained from Brazil nuts, fish, and eggs. The principle is not supplementation but sufficiency, ensuring that the body has access to the raw materials its maintenance systems require. Another critical maintenance system involves the removal of damaged proteins and organelles. Cells contain specialized structures called proteasomes that degrade misfolded or damaged proteins, breaking them down into component amino acids that can be reused. Lysosomes serve as cellular recycling centers, engulfing larger damaged structures and digesting them into basic building blocks. These cleanup systems become less efficient with age, allowing damaged components to accumulate and interfere with normal function. Emerging research suggests that certain interventions may support these cleanup processes. Periods of reduced calorie intake, whether through intermittent fasting or occasional lower-calorie days, appear to activate cellular cleanup pathways. When nutrients are scarce, cells shift resources away from growth and toward maintenance, ramping up the recycling of damaged components. This may explain why moderate calorie restriction has been consistently associated with extended lifespan across multiple species. The quality of cellular membranes also influences aging. Every cell is enclosed by a lipid bilayer, a double layer of fatty molecules that controls what enters and exits. The composition of these membranes affects their fluidity and function. Diets rich in saturated fats produce more rigid membranes. Diets rich in unsaturated fats, particularly omega-3 fatty acids from fish and certain plants, support membrane flexibility. Membrane fluidity influences everything from nutrient uptake to signal transmission to waste removal. The metabolic foundation. At the center of cellular function lies metabolism, the complex set of chemical reactions that convert food into energy and building blocks. How well this system operates profoundly influences how the body ages. Blood sugar regulation deserves particular attention. When carbohydrates are consumed, they break down into glucose, which enters the bloodstream. The pancreas releases insulin, signaling cells to take up this glucose for energy or storage. In a well-functioning system, blood sugar rises modestly after meals and returns to baseline within a few hours. With repeated exposure to high carbohydrate loads, cells can become less responsive to insulin's signal. The pancreas responds by producing more insulin, creating a cycle of increasing resistance and increasing production. Chronically elevated insulin levels promote inflammation, encourage fat storage, and accelerate cellular aging processes. Over years, this pattern can progress to prediabetes and eventually type 2 diabetes, conditions associated with accelerated aging across multiple body systems. Populations with exceptional longevity often consume diets that minimize sharp blood sugar spikes. Traditional eating patterns in places like Okinawa, Japan, and Korea, Greece emphasize vegetables, legumes, and whole foods prepared simply. Meals are satisfying but not excessive, and the overall glycemic load, the total blood sugar impact of the diet, remains moderate. Physical activity powerfully influences metabolic health. Muscle tissue is highly metabolically active, meaning it consumes glucose even at rest. Individuals with more muscle mass typically have better blood sugar regulation because they have more tissue demanding fuel. Additionally, muscle contraction itself increases glucose uptake through insulin-independent pathways. Simply moving muscles helps clear sugar from the bloodstream regardless of insulin sensitivity. The timing of meals may matter as much as their content. Extended overnight fasts, typically 12 to 14 hours from dinner to breakfast, allow insulin levels to drop and remain low for a period. This fasting interval gives cells a break from constant nutrient exposure and may support the cellular cleanup processes mentioned earlier. Some evidence suggests that confining eating to a roughly 10 to 12-hour window each day, with a consistent overnight fast, supports metabolic health independent of what is eaten. Movement as medicine. The human body was designed for movement. Every system, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, nervous, metabolic, operates optimally when regularly challenged by physical activity. When movement decreases, these systems gradually downregulate, losing capacity in a use it or lose it pattern that accelerates with age. Consider what happens to muscle without regular use. Beginning around age 30, adults lose approximately 3 to 5% of muscle mass per decade, a process that accelerates after 60. This age-related muscle loss, known as sarcopenia, affects not just strength, but overall metabolic health, mobility, and independence. Muscle serves as the body's largest glucose reservoir, its primary protein store, and its main engine for movement. Preserving muscle mass and function should be a central goal of any longevity-oriented approach. Resistance training provides the most direct stimulus for muscle maintenance. When muscles are challenged with weights, resistance bands, or bodyweight exercises, they respond by increasing protein synthesis and maintaining or building fiber size. This response occurs at any age. Even individuals in their 80s and 90s can gain strength and muscle mass with appropriate training. The key is progressive overload, gradually increasing the challenge to continually stimulate adaptation. Equally important is cardiovascular conditioning. The heart is a muscle, and like all muscles, it responds to regular challenge by becoming more efficient. Aerobic activities, walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, improve the heart's pumping capacity, increase the density of blood vessels, and enhance the muscle's ability to extract oxygen from blood. These adaptations translate into greater endurance, better energy, and reduced cardiovascular risk. Balance training deserves specific attention as we age. Falls represent a major threat to independence in later years, often triggering cascades of decline from which recovery is difficult. Balance is a skill, not a fixed trait. It can be trained and maintained. Practices that challenge balance, such as Tai Chi, yoga, or simply standing on one foot while brushing teeth, stimulate the sensory and motor systems that keep us upright. Maintaining these systems reduces fall risk and preserves the confidence to remain active. The movement patterns of long-lived populations offer instructive examples. In Sardinia's Blue Zone region, shepherds walk miles of hilly terrain daily into advanced age. In Okinawa, elders tend gardens and practice martial arts. In Nicoya, Costa Rica, physical labor remains part of daily life well into the 80s and 90s. These are not gym-based exercise programs, but movement woven into the fabric of daily existence. Walking to markets, working in fields, visiting neighbors on foot. The principle is not intensity, but consistency. Moving the body daily, in varied ways that challenge different systems, provides the stimulus for continued maintenance. Brief but frequent movement breaks throughout the day may be more valuable than concentrated exercise sessions followed by prolonged sitting. The architecture of eating. Nutrition for longevity differs in important ways from nutrition for weight loss or athletic performance. The goal shifts from short-term outcomes to long-term support of all body systems, providing the raw materials for maintenance while avoiding excesses that accelerate aging. Protein intake becomes increasingly important with age. Older adults require more protein than younger adults to maintain muscle mass because of reduced efficiency in protein utilization. The recommended intake for older adults is approximately 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight daily, significantly higher than standard recommendations. This protein should be distributed across meals rather than concentrated in one. Consuming 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal appears more effective for stimulating muscle protein synthesis than eating minimal protein at breakfast and lunch followed by a large dinner portion. The source of protein matters less than commonly assumed. Both animal and plant proteins can support health when consumed as part of an overall balanced diet. Animal proteins provide all essential amino acids in proportions well matched to human needs. while plant proteins offer fiber and phytonutrients alongside their amino acid content. Combining different plant proteins throughout the day ensures adequate amino acid intake for those following plant-based patterns. Fat quality significantly influences inflammatory status. The body uses dietary fats to construct cell membranes and produce signaling molecules that regulate inflammation. Diets high in omega-6 fatty acids from industrial seed oils and low in omega-3s from fish, flax, and walnuts tend to promote inflammatory processes. Shifting toward more omega-3 sources and reducing intake of highly processed oils supports a more balanced inflammatory response. Carbohydrate quality matters more than quantity for most people. Whole carbohydrates, vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains deliver fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients alongside their energy content. Refined carbohydrates, white flour, white rice, added sugars, deliver energy with minimal accompanying nutrients. Replacing refined carbohydrates with whole versions improves metabolic response without necessarily changing total carbohydrate intake. Phytonutrients, the thousands of bioactive compounds plants produce, represent an area of growing research interest. These compounds, which include flavonoids, carotenoids, and glucosinolates, appear to support health through multiple mechanisms. They have antioxidant activity, but perhaps more importantly, they activate cellular defense pathways that enhance the body's own protective systems. Eating a variety of colorful plants ensures exposure to this diverse array of compounds. The traditional Mediterranean diet, widely studied for its association with longevity, embodies many of these principles. It emphasizes vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, fish, and olive oil, with moderate amounts of dairy and wine and limited red meat and sweets. This pattern provides adequate protein, healthy fats, abundant phytonutrients, and a glycemic load that supports metabolic health. Importantly, it is not a restrictive diet, but a satisfying way of eating that can be maintained across decades. The nervous system and stress. The relationship between stress and aging deserves careful consideration. Stress itself is not harmful. The human stress response evolved to mobilize energy and focus attention in the face of threats, enhancing survival. Problems arise when the stress response remains chronically activated, when the body continues producing stress hormones long after any threat has passed. Chronic stress exposure affects multiple systems relevant to aging. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, influences metabolism, immune function, and inflammation. Persistently elevated cortisol promotes fat storage, particularly in the abdominal area, and can contribute to insulin resistance. It also affects the hippocampus, a brain region critical for memory, potentially accelerating age-related cognitive changes. The nervous system's response to stress varies considerably between individuals. Some people recover quickly from challenges, their stress hormones returning to baseline rapidly once a situation resolves. Others remain activated longer, their systems slower to downregulate. This recovery capacity appears to be trainable. Practices that promote relaxation and present-moment awareness can enhance the body's ability to return to baseline after stress. Sleep represents the most fundamental restoration period for the nervous system. During sleep, the brain clears metabolic waste products, consolidates memories, and resets neural circuits for the next day. Chronic sleep restriction impairs these processes and has been associated with accelerated cognitive aging, metabolic dysfunction, and increased inflammation. Most adults require 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep for optimal function, though individual needs vary. Social connection influences nervous system regulation in ways relevant to aging. Positive social interactions trigger release of oxytocin and other neuropeptides that counterbalance stress responses. Loneliness, by contrast, creates a state of chronic vigilance that keeps stress systems activated. Populations with exceptional longevity typically maintain strong social ties across the lifespan, with elders remaining embedded in family and community networks rather than isolated. The concept of allostatic load provides a useful framework for understanding these relationships. Allostatic load refers to the cumulative wear and tear on body systems resulting from repeated stress responses over time. Each stress activation causes no lasting harm by itself, but the accumulation of these responses across years and decades gradually erodes resilience. Managing stress is not about eliminating challenges, but about ensuring adequate recovery between them. Cognitive architecture. The brain ages, but it also adapts. The concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself in response to experience, operates across the lifespan. While some cognitive changes are inevitable with age, the brain retains considerable capacity for learning and adaptation well into later years. Cognitive reserve refers to the brain's ability to maintain function despite underlying changes. Individuals with greater cognitive reserve can tolerate more age-related brain changes before showing functional decline. This reserve appears to be built through lifelong learning, complex mental activities, and education. It is not about doing crossword puzzles in later years, but about continuously engaging with novel, challenging mental content throughout life. The types of mental activity matter. Passive consumption of familiar content, watching television shows similar to those watched for decades, provides minimal cognitive stimulation. Active engagement with novel material, learning a new skill, studying a new subject, navigating unfamiliar environments, creates the conditions for continued neural adaptation. The brain responds to challenge much as muscle does, without progressive overload. It does not continue building capacity. Social engagement contributes to cognitive health through multiple mechanisms. Conversation requires rapid processing of verbal and nonverbal information, maintaining attention, and formulating responses, all cognitively demanding activities. Social interaction also provides emotional regulation and stress buffering that indirectly support brain health. Maintaining social connections into later years correlates with better cognitive outcomes across multiple studies. Physical activity benefits the brain directly. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, stimulates release of growth factors that support neuron survival and plasticity, and may promote the birth of new neurons in the hippocampus. The cognitive benefits of regular physical activity are among the most consistently replicated findings in aging research. Nutrition affects cognitive function through multiple pathways. Omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, are structural components of brain cell membranes. B vitamins, especially B12, folate, and B6, are required for the production of neurotransmitters and the maintenance of myelin, the insulating sheath around nerve fibers. Antioxidant nutrients protect brain tissue from oxidative damage. Deficiencies in any of these areas can compromise cognitive function. The social architecture, perhaps the most overlooked factor in longevity research, involves the social environment, how we relate to others, our position in social networks, and our sense of connection to community appear to influence health outcomes as powerfully as any dietary or exercise intervention. The Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest-running longitudinal studies of human health, has followed participants for nearly 9 decades. Its clearest finding is that the quality of relationships predicts health and happiness in later years better than cholesterol levels, blood pressure, or any other measured variable. People who are more socially connected to family, friends, and community live longer and remain healthier than those who are more isolated. Several mechanisms likely explain this connection. Social support buffers the effects of stress, providing emotional resources that help regulate stress responses. Social engagement encourages health-promoting behaviors. People who are connected to others tend to eat better, move more, and seek medical care when needed. Social networks can also provide practical support during illness or recovery, reducing the burden of health challenges. The structure of social networks matters. Having a few very close relationships provides different benefits than belonging to a broader community network. Both appear valuable, but they serve different functions. Close relationships provide emotional support and a sense of being truly known. Broader community connections provide a sense of belonging and access to diverse resources and information. Purpose and meaning, often derived from social roles and contributions, also correlate with longevity. Individuals who feel they have a reason to get up in the morning, whether caring for family, contributing to community, pursuing creative work, or engaging in spiritual practice, tend to maintain function longer than those who lack such purpose. The Japanese concept of ikigai, roughly translated as reason for being, captures this sense that life holds meaning worth living for. Intergenerational connection deserves specific attention. In many traditional societies, elders remain embedded in family networks, contributing to childcare, sharing wisdom, and maintaining valued roles. This integration serves both generations. Children benefit from elder attention and wisdom. Elders benefit from continued purpose and engagement. Modern societies that segregate age groups may inadvertently deprive elders of these benefits. Environmental architecture. The environments we inhabit shape our behavior in ways we rarely recognize. Physical spaces can encourage or discourage movement, facilitate or impede social connection, support or undermine healthy choices. Optimizing these environments represents a strategy for improving health without relying solely on willpower. The concept of choice architecture applies to health behaviors. When healthy options are the easiest options, people tend to choose them without conscious effort. A kitchen where fruit sits on the counter and processed snacks are stored out of sight makes the healthy choice the easy choice. A neighborhood with sidewalks and nearby destinations makes walking the natural choice for short trips. Light exposure influences circadian rhythms that affect sleep, mood, and metabolism. Bright light exposure in the morning helps synchronize internal clocks to the external world, promoting earlier sleep onset and better sleep quality. Evening exposure to bright artificial light, particularly the blue wavelengths emitted by screens, delays melatonin production and can disrupt sleep. Simple environmental adjustments, morning walks outdoors, dimming lights in the evening, avoiding screens before bed support circadian health. Indoor air quality affects respiratory health and may influence cognitive function. Modern buildings often concentrate pollutants from cleaning products, building materials, and outdoor air infiltration. Adequate ventilation, use of non-toxic cleaning products, and incorporation of air filtering plants can improve indoor air quality. Nature exposure has measurable health benefits. Time in green spaces reduces stress hormones, improves mood, and may enhance immune function. Even viewing nature through windows or in images provides some benefit. Incorporating regular nature contact into daily life, walking in parks, gardening, sitting under trees, supports multiple aspects of health. The thermal environment also matters. Exposure to mild cold or heat stresses the body in ways that may enhance metabolic function and cellular maintenance processes. Traditional practices like sauna bathing have been associated with reduced cardiovascular mortality in observational studies. Occasional mild thermal stress, within safe limits, may activate protective cellular pathways similar to those triggered by exercise. The integration of systems. The body does not age system by system in isolation. Everything connects. Metabolic health influences cognitive function. Physical activity affects stress regulation. Social connection impacts immune function. Sleep quality influences metabolic health. These interconnections mean that improvements in one area often produce benefits across multiple systems. This integrated perspective suggests that the goal is not optimizing individual biomarkers, but supporting the overall system. A narrow focus on cholesterol, or blood pressure, or any single measure misses the broader context of how these factors interact. The person who eats well, moves regularly, maintains social connections, manages stress, and sleeps adequately will likely have good numbers across multiple measures, but the numbers reflect the underlying health of the system rather than being targets in themselves. The concept of resilience captures this integrated view. Resilience refers to the body's ability to withstand challenges and recover from stressors. A resilient organism maintains function across a range of conditions and bounces back quickly from perturbations. Building resilience involves supporting all the systems that contribute to this capacity: metabolic, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, nervous, immune, so they can work together effectively. Small, consistent actions build resilience over time. A daily walk, a meal built around vegetables, a phone call to a friend, a few minutes of quiet reflection, a consistent sleep schedule. None of these single actions transforms health by itself. Accumulated across months and years, they shape the trajectory of aging in ways that no intervention applied later can match. This understanding carries an empowering message. The choices made today, tomorrow, and in the days that follow genuinely matter. Not because they will produce immediate visible changes, but because they participate in the ongoing conversation between behavior and biology that determines how well the body maintains itself over time. The body listens. It responds to what it receives, to how it is challenged, to the environments it inhabits, to the connections it maintains. The question of time. We return to where we began, to the question of time and what it means to grow older. The cultural narrative suggests that aging is a problem to be solved, a process to be fought, an enemy to be resisted at all costs. This framing creates anxiety and drives consumption of products promising to stop or reverse time. But it also distances us from a deeper truth. Aging is not separate from living. It is living, extended across decades. The same processes that built the body and maintained it through youth continue operating in later years, though with gradually shifting capacity. The goal is not to stop these processes, but to support them, to provide what the body needs to continue its maintenance work as effectively as possible. This perspective transforms the relationship with time. Rather than fighting against the years, we work with them, making choices that honor the body's design, that acknowledge its needs, that support its inherent wisdom. The face in the mirror continues changing, as faces always have. But the person behind that face, the one making choices day after day, participates actively in shaping how those changes unfold. The architecture of longevity is not a secret to be discovered or a product to be purchased. It is the accumulated result of how we live, what we eat, how we move, who we love, where we find meaning, how we respond to challenge. These elements, woven together across decades, create the structure within which aging occurs, not controlling the outcome, but participating in its creation. The evidence from those who have aged well, from populations where vitality into advanced years remains common, suggests that the principles outlined here reflect something fundamental about human biology, not because they represent the latest research findings, but because they align with how the body was designed to function. Movement, nourishment, connection, purpose, restoration. These are not interventions to be applied, but needs to be met. Meeting them consistently, across the years, creates the conditions for the body to do what it does best. Maintain itself, repair itself, continue functioning. In the quiet of the morning, looking at the face that has accompanied you through all these years, perhaps there is another way of seeing what time is written there. Not as decline, but as evidence of living. Not as problem, but as process. The architecture of longevity is built one day at a time, one choice at a time, one connection at a time. The body knows what it needs. The question is whether we will provide it. The body you inhabit today is not merely the result of genetics or luck. It is the accumulated expression of countless small choices: what you have eaten, how you have moved, who you have loved, where you have found meaning, how you have responded to challenge. These elements, woven together across decades, create the architecture within which aging unfolds. Not as something that simply happens to you, but as something you actively participate in shaping. The question is not whether time will pass. It will, as it always has. The question is what kind of architecture you will build with the days you are given. If these ideas have prompted reflection on your own relationship with time and vitality, we would be honored to hear your thoughts in the comments. What has shaped your understanding of healthy aging? What questions remain with you? And if you would like to continue exploring the wisdom of living well across the years, we invite you to explore other films in this library and to subscribe so that new wisdom finds its way to you. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.